You're ready? And we're going to record. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. You did it? Okay, thank you.
So I just click on got it, I guess, and start with the screen share. And there we have it. Can everyone see all right? Is this working?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, we see fine. It's good.
Okay, great. Well, welcome and thank you for coming, and thank you, Eileen, for inviting me to speak again. The last time, as we were just chatting, was back in 2018 in person. So this is the first Zoom presentation. And as was sent out in the promo, I'm a photo-based artist. I'm based in Philadelphia. My work ranges from photographs, collages, and sculptural works to also public art and installations. I am a graduate of Tyler School of Art, where I earned a BFA. I actually entered Tyler as a painter and exited as a photographer, because in my sophomore year, I took a class in photography so that I could take photos of my paintings. And as soon as I held the camera, that was it. I knew I had found my medium. And I'm talking about, back then, not everybody in the world had a camera. So it was a big deal to me to have a camera and to really start to explore the world around me with that camera. I continue to work primarily photo-based, but I'm also doing some sculptural works now. But from the very beginning, it has fascinated me how photography can take a three-dimensional object or scene and render it two-dimensionally. And so my other fascination is to come back to a three-dimensional object, which I'm doing with my sculptural pieces, and which I also do with a series called Photo Totems, which you'll see I build structures based upon the 2¼ images. And this page right here kind of echoes, well, it's the second after the splash page, which was the very first page on my website. This is like an intro or contents page showing several series, little rituals, monumental miniatures, those are the sculptures. Extrapolations are my collages, and soliloquy, Polaroids, and personal myths are color work, single images. Most of the work you'll see is analog based, film based, but I also do work with digital imagery, and as well as photograms and computer generated imagery. And just to jump back for a second, this is the kind of work I was doing at Tyler in my freshman year. I was influenced by Matisse and Magritte. And but then I met a camera and I fell in love with the camera. These are a couple of very early photographs. My first camera was a 2¼ square format twin lens Yashica, and I really loved the square format. I did try different cameras. 35mm, of course, was the main other format. And for me, I realized that I liked the square, the perfection of the square, kind of the purity of the equal vertical and horizontal dimension. And I later realized that I was really drawn to geometric shapes, pure geometric shapes, circles, squares, triangles. And that's becomes apparent in my work. And so this is one of my earliest, if not the earliest, body of work. called Little Rituals, which I began actually back in 1974 while I was still, or just after Tyler. And it's a mix of setting up imagery and walking and exploring with my camera to capture things as I find them. One thing I forgot to mention is after Tyler, I went to NYU. I moved to New York City to go to NYU Graduate Film and Television, which I completed. It was a 3-year program, which I completed just 1 year of, because I realized I'm much more of a solo artist, and I much preferred photography to film. I didn't know whether there was what the connection would be between photography and film. And in fact, at Tyler, film there, my exposure to film there, it was much more experimental type of film. Whereas at NYU, it was very linear, very literal, beginning, middle, end. And in fact, I made a film that was a circular format that I kind of got in trouble with because it didn't have a beginning, middle, end, which you're supposed to have. But I don't think that way. I have a lot of things happening at simultaneously. So again, this series is sometimes shown individually or diptychs or triptychs, and I utilize imagery from this series in a lot of my other work, which you'll see. And also after my 1 year at NYU, I stayed in New York for about 5 years and then moved to Southern California for just about a year before coming to Philadelphia, which I had actually never lived in downtown Philadelphia till after California. And so this is kind of an indication of, you know, the New York side on the left, where I was living in the Lower East or the East Village, and then a move to California. So the contrast was quite big. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm drawn to geometric shapes, and in the image on the right, you can see the circular shapes of the palm tree with the triangular shape of the pyramid, all within the square. And this image actually on the right is in the permanent collection at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So I started showing, this work has been shown at several venues, including the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum. I don't have any great installation shots or any installation shots because, again, this was before digital, and you know, now I would have taken a lot of pictures of the installation of the, but I didn't at the time, and actually the museum doesn't have any either. So that's but this is one of these of several images that was exhibited at the show. And that was a 2-person show. And here again is another exhibition featuring Little Rituals. That was at the Trout Gallery at Dickinson College in 2009. Just jumping back, this was in 1996-97. This show traveled from the Aldrich Museum to University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Then I was invited to do a large-scale public art piece for New Jersey Transit. I actually got this project through a friend of mine who was working at the same site, and he subcontracted me to do a secondary part of the installation, which is still there. It's a permanent installation at the 9th Street Station in Hoboken, New Jersey. Although I'm overdue to go back and visit it since it's been installed in 2004. So I hope it's doing okay. But these were all images from Little Rituals, my Little Ritual series, and mixed with photograms. If you can see on the top row, the image on the upper left is the design itself. below that is the installation shot, which is actually 6 images stitched together because it was a very difficult site to photograph. There's a low tunnel, and by the time you get to the entrance of that tunnel, there's no room to get one big wide shot. So I had to do it in sections and stitch that together. And then the bottom right is a photograph of me with the piece, just to show the scale. So each of these 27 panels is 40 by 40 inches. And so overall it's 10 feet by 30 feet. But so I worked from my archive, from my Little Rituals archive, and also traveled to the area to take photographs that would be pertinent to the area, like this image of the skyline of Manhattan in the lower left, shot from Weehawken, and train tracks, all imagery to do with travel, but very open to interpretation and dreams in transit. So you're daydreaming while you're moving through the space and on your way to your destination. And then I wanted to liven it with color, so I chose red as the accent color to accompany that. And the porcelain enamel, though, is a beautiful material to work with, and I found a great fabricator that can do beautiful halftone imagery, made from porcelain enamel. So these giant panels, well, not giant, but 40 by 40, were drop shipped to the site, and I actually had a sample panel sent to me first to make sure everything was looking good. But they did a fantastic job. So that was exciting. And here's another example of the same series, shown at the Katona Museum of Art in a solo show in one of the galleries at the museum called the Project Gallery. At the time, the museum was having the main exhibition was a single object still life, and they invited me to exhibit in a secondary gallery because my work was very much involved with objects and photographs of objects, and then the photographs becoming objects themselves in the form of a photo totem. This is what I was talking about earlier with extending the square into a 3-dimensional cube, and then stacking them with various images juxtaposed against each other to spark new connections and meanings that the viewer might make on their own. All my work is intended to be open to interpretation. I'm not, trying to have one particular meaning. It's all open to whatever people bring to it. And I like this long horizontal piece, kind of, echoes a film strip, or, and the totem is the vertical juxtapositions against the horizontal juxtapositions and going into the corners of the wall, and throughout the space. So these are a couple more installation views. And in fact, I hung an object, in this case, a high-heeled shoe, from the ceiling to sort of break up the squares and to have a shape and to have an actual object in the exhibition. If anybody has any questions along the way, feel free to let me know. I don't know how you would do that, but I'm sure Adam knows.
Yeah, Jay, I have a question. Were you actually printing the image on porcelain? Is that how it worked?
No, I didn't do that. This was a fabricator that I contacted, and I sent them large, very large, well, actual size digital files for them to print from.
But the image was printed on the porcelain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Porcelain enamel on steel.
Wow. Interesting.
So it's very heavy, very, with public art, you have to have
Yeah,
something
no,
that
I
is,
understand with public art, you have to do that, but that's a very.
you have to have something that's weatherproof and can stand up and hold up over time and be exposed to the elements, including people and graffiti and all that. So
Mhm.
that can be cleaned. And so I did a lot of research to find a good fabricator, and
Yeah.
and they
Awesome.
were great. I was going to go with a company in Canada, and I'm glad I didn't, because I later found out that they went out of business. And they went out of business during the time of my project going forward. So I don't know what I would have done, but there are all kinds of things, unexpected things that can happen along the way with any project. But
All right, thank you.
sure, absolutely. And this
Um,
is, oh,
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Um, I just wanted to say I love your work, and I'm like really big on film photography. I have digital camera, but I do a lot of like 35mm film photography, and
uh-huh.
I've been really like wanting to go. I do a lot of scene still, and
You
I
do
do
a lot of
color,
what?
I do scene still, but I've been really wanting to transition over to black and white, because I've read where if you do black and white, that's how you capture the soul, and that's how you capture things better around it. And I wanted to ask, what inspired you so much with going with black and white film?
Well, what I love about black and white is it's removed from reality. It's very, very graphic.
Mm.
It allows you to see things to be really simplified in a way. You just see things in a way that you wouldn't in color, because we normally see in color unless you're colorblind. So it's an immediate sort of starkness and boldness that black and white has, unless it can also be a very soft image, but black and white. But it's immediately captures your attention in a different way, because it is black and white. It's without color. So I just find it very it's just more bold and graphic with the blacks and the whites and the grays, and it simplifies things. It's a lot simpler than color photography. I have a whole series of color coming up, and it's a very different kind of feeling. My color work is a little bit more sensual and soft, and the black and white is just more bold and graphic, and that's black and white is just
It's a very unique. It it just captures the eyes differently than compared to like color.
exactly. It's because we see normally with color, so it's
Yeah.
immediately it's different.
I just wanted to say, like, I really loved the one exhibition you had where it was the squares, the way the formation of the squares were, how you had the panel set. The other one. Yes, that one. I
Wait,
love how
this
you
one
did that.
or this one?
Yes, right
This
there in
one.
the slide over. Right, yeah, that one right there
Yeah.
in the middle. I love how you set it up. It's like each square has its own little short story within a
Yes,
story.
exactly. Yes. And I want everyone to bring their own story to the short story, I mean, and it's how things relate to each other, whether it's a dog or a chair or a cloud, or I'm finding the connections between everything, whether it's animate or inanimate.
Like
You
when
know,
I look at this, I just look at it and I see the different symbolisms of what love has to do with the connections, the lightning strike and everything. The way the girl has her hand, it just looks like she's distracted with something, or something's stressing her out. But like at the same time, you look to the other side and you see I think they're like antelopes or something. You
yes,
see
those are antelopes.
you see them, and you see them together as a unit, and then you see the lightning strike underneath her, and it's kind of like reality kicks in. It's like one side of the story tells a love story, The other side tells,
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I
yeah, it's like
love
one
hearing
side
what
tells a
other
story of
people s-
love, and the other side kind of like goes through like the emotions of what love and feeling feels like. It's like you have
Wow.
the love and you have the expression of what love feels like in every symbol. It's beautiful.
Wow, thank you very much. I love hearing what other people see in my work because I'm so close to it. You know, I wish
Yeah.
I could see it like for the first time, but I've seen it so many times that I saw it, you know, for the first time when I made the photograph. So it's really nice to hear that. Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Um, So again, I collect things, objects that and odd things that I use in my work. This, I don't know if you can see it on the image on the left, the vertical piece. That was a burned piece, a burned letter that I found in the street, and I used it as a photogram in the darkroom. And so the black burned edge actually shows up white here. And to me, I see kind of the way the foam of a wave coming in off the beach. I mean, you see other things in what's really there, if you know what I mean. Does anybody see that? It's I don't know what other people see. That's why I really enjoyed the remarks by whoever that was. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but uh anyway. And then on the right is an image called Cloud Cube. And this was an 8.5x11 sheet of paper I found at a copy shop and was just lying there. I took it home. I liked the quote unquote noise, just that pattern of uh, whatever that is, speckles or whatever. And I cut a hole, a square hole to insert a negative in, and then I drew the extended cube around it, and I contact printed that. So that's a contact print of that 2¼ negative with the sheet of paper around it. And that's kind of how I guess I have a thing for cubes, and obviously, and here's the cube table. So I've always been interested in functional art also. And this is a table of, I only made a few of these that are in a couple personal collections. And so this was, again, porcelain enamel on steel. And it has 4 images from Little Rituals. And this was shot in one of the collector's homes with her leopard chair. This is another a couple of photograms. These are 2 separate images. I don't know if that's apparent, but and these are small scale. The one on the left is just 3 inches by about 9 inches. And again, you see the palm tree, the black swan. I have some recurring images that I just use in different contexts in different ways. The image on the right is 11 by 14, and it's a photogram photogram background with a map on the right, some hair that I bought from a thrift store, and a key from my key collection. And then I added the shoe and the pyramid and palm trees after the fact of the photogram, and then added the word entrance. I don't know if anyone can see that, but I hand applied in ink the title of the piece, entrance. And with my titles, I when it's a single word, I like to use words that have more than one meaning, like entrance could be entrance or entrance. So I collect words that I love, and I then apply them or match them later with work that they fit with. So I collect all kinds of things, including words. And here are a couple more from extrapolations. I have 2 pieces here. On the left is called Intimations, and then next to that is Private Eye. These are both in the collection at the Norton Museum of Art, which went into the collection after the exhibition called Focus on New Photography, and that was 2005. Yeah. And so here I'm shifting gears to color work, and this is a series called Soliloquy, which is meaning, one voice. And what did I just do there? Oh, I know, I tapped the mouse by accident. So again, as I was mentioning before, the color work, I was doing it simultaneously with the black and white, and I was exploring the differences between color and black and white. And with as I mentioned, the color is much more sort of sensual and soft, and these are much more set up images more than with the black and white. Well, I set those up too, but these are a little bit more staged, I guess I should say. That's the word. And I used a very small handful of models, with the main one being my sister, actually, who's in the middle, and the photo on the right, who was very, very simpatico with me. She was also an artist, and really understood what I was getting at with the work, and was really wonderful to work with. A great collaborator, because a good model makes all the difference in a photograph. If you're working with the figure, it's very important to have a good model. Because I don't do street photography. I'm not talking about, walking down the street and finding things that are unusual or interesting. This is planning something ahead of time, setting it up and shooting it. So this was done at a quarry. And again, there's a double meaning of the word. It is a quarry where I photographed this, but quarry can also mean something caught in a hunt. That's the quarry that you're going after. You know what I mean? So I love double meanings of words. And that again is my sister, and I had a crazy jumpsuit that a friend had made, and I just gather props, models, and locations and put them all together and come out with an image, hopefully. And this is pretty amazing to me that, all this was shot before digital. So I didn't know whether it was going to be something I was happy with in the end, but luckily I was. Now, as opposed to SX70, that's kind of the first time, and other kinds of Polaroids, that's the first time people were able to see an image soon after making it, rather than having to go get it processed, developed, do the whole thing and wait till you could see what you were getting. This was the next most immediate thing. I guess kind of a bridge between, on the way to digital. So these are all SX70 Polaroids made in New York, Santa Barbara, and Philadelphia. Because as I mentioned, I had moved to Southern California just for a brief time before moving to Philadelphia. That's a still life example. And this again is another series called Personal Myths, which is using work from Soliloquy, which I just showed you. And these are contact prints in the dark, made in the darkroom. Each of these sheets is 8 by 10 inches. So I would place the negative. I always cut my strips. I don't have, all my negatives are cut. I'm digitizing everything now, but they're all cut off of the strip so that I can contact print them. And I would place the image and the main negative in the center of the paper and combine it with other materials like a stamp here on the left or a cutout piece of paper of a graph on the right. And then actually about a year later, I re-wet the paper. This is back, I printed these in a dark room in complete darkness. And later I felt that they needed something additional. So I re-wet the paper, making the emulsion soft again. And I scratched into the emulsion the drawings and the single word titles. And here's one where I actually physically cut the negative right down the center. This is not cutting in Photoshop, where if you don't like the cut, you can undo it. This is a cut with scissors. I love scissors. I love cutting. And I cut the negative, and then I reversed the two parts of it. That's actually me. I did a self-portrait, set the camera up, had little pieces of tape on the floor so I could know where I was going to be in the frame, and shot it, and I got it, and I wasn't able to check it right after I took the picture. I had to wait after processing and everything. Anyway, then in the final completion of this piece, I re-wet the image, the paper, and then scratched. The vertical lines are made by scratching the paper with my fingernails. So I'm very tactile. I like to keep my hand in things, and that's how I did it with these pieces. Then I did have these several series of work that I wanted to compile in a monograph, and so I did, and I called it Photo Play, and the cover of the image is actually the the real image is on the right. I had the model, she was not hanging. I had her put her legs straight up, and then I flipped that to be the cover, and the actual orientation is on the back of the cover. But I played with the title for a long time. It was going to be Photo Work, and then I just decided Photo Play, which is actually a pun on another. There was a magazine called Photo Play that was all about film and movies and things like that. So it was playing off of that. So in this book, I decided to combine series rather than segregating them. I could have kept all of the color work together, or all the black and white work together, all the collages together, and the single images, but I wanted to juxtapose them, which is how they appear. These are just a few spreads from the book. And so that book was done in 2004 in time for, and in conjunction with a show I was having at the Print Center in Philadelphia, also called Photo Play. So I guess this was actually the first time that I really showed the totems together with the color work. And these are just a few more of the totems. And as you can see in this picture, I have tabletop versions and large scale. And various configurations. This one is a little bit like a pyramid shape. And I think I might have put this slide in the wrong spot, but this is another semi-public work, but large-scale wall mural at an apartment complex called the Versailles, and that's 9 feet by 20 feet. And interestingly, I have the photograph the original photograph, which is not a square format, as you can see. I traveled to Europe in 1986, one of a few trips, and went to Versailles. And I think I took a 35 millimeter on that trip instead of 2 1/4, because the 2 1/4 was just too heavy. So I was just very shocked and pleased, actually, that 30 years later, the image wound up as a large-scale mural. And jumping into something else altogether, I guess it's sort of connected to, well, it's connected to the photo totems. I was commissioned, I had shown the photo totems to a colleague in New York who was putting a show together about dogs, and he needed a dimensional piece, and he had seen my small scale photo totems, and he commissioned me to do a dog totem for the exhibition, which was, they had plenty of work for the walls, but not enough. He wanted a couple of sculptures. And so mine was actually just one of 2 sculptures in the show, which actually originated in New York City and traveled for 2 years throughout North America. But so I set about photographing dogs and found a lot of them, which I never really noticed before till I needed pictures to photograph them. And I didn't want them to be like all cute, pretty pictures of dogs. And so I thought, okay, I'll go to the Mutter Museum and see if they have anything in the skeleton department, which they did have. And this skeleton on the left was actually in a valise. It was in a suitcase, all kind of jumbled, and I had to go there and carefully lay it out and position it on the black velvet that I brought with me, and then I photographed it from above to have that clean profile silhouette. And these are just a couple of other dogs that I came upon and photographed. Killer on the left and Oz on the right. I travel a lot with black velvet because it makes a wonderful clean background when I'm going to shoot on location. And so there is the dog totem, and it was shown. I don't have good installation shots of the original show that was done for in New York, but I do from this years later, because that show had opened in 2000. So this is several years later. It was in a group show here in Philadelphia at a wonderful gallery, which no longer is there. I don't know if any of you were familiar with it, but it was right around 20th and Pine, I think. Fantastic gallery. And again, here's another example of non-2 1/4 image. This is Leo Castelli's Dalmatian, whose name is Patty Boy. And I photographed him when I lived in New York City. I photographed him in 1978. I used to go to the Castelli Gallery a lot. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Leo Castelli was a very, very influential gallerist in New York City, responsible for discovering a lot of quite well-known artists. And this I shot with a little, what was it called? It's a double frame 35 millimeter. So you would get 72 photos on a 36, a normal 36 frame roll of film. So that was just really fun to work with. And Patty Boy was looking one direction 1 minute and another in another minute. And so I captured him. And again, I never dreamed that, many, many years later, I guess 25 years later, that image would wind up in this wonderful book called 1,000 Hounds. And fast forward to 2019, 2020, this was an exhibition at the Fleischer Art Memorial. It was the Wind Challenge exhibition, part of the Wind Challenge exhibition series. And in this one, I actually combined the large little rituals photo totem with the large dog totem. I combined them in a new configuration, and rather than a single column totems, I created this different configuration, and along with the smaller totems on the pedestals and single images in the background there.
Hi, Jenny. This is Anthony. I wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
How do you construct your totems? Are they made of wood? What is the base, and how do you apply the photographs?
That's
I'm
a good
interested because
question.
they look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I work with a fabricator who actually also is a friend, which is lucky for me. And he makes them out of wood, and they're covered with, I think, something called melamine. They're not solid, they're hollow. The small ones are solid wood cubes painted with, that he paints for me. He paints them black. I think he uses automotive paint, which is has a beautiful sheen to it.
Okay.
And then I apply the photographs myself
Mhm.
with an archival double-sided adhesive.
Okay. Well, they're beautiful. Very nice.
Thank
I
you. I
love-
do that with the big ones are very nerve-wracking to, apply, because if you make one false move or get it on there crooked, it's like not good.
Yeah.
So
And are they separate cubes that can be put together in different ways, or are they
yes,
connected? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
they're separate.
Very nice. Wonderful.
I've toyed with making them fixed, not the big ones, but the small ones. And there's just something about that I like about them being able to be reconfigured,
Yeah.
so I have not done that
Yeah.
with
Wonderful.
any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Darius. I had actually a question earlier about like black and whites.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to get into darkroom. I've been like a huge darkroom fan since I was a kid, watching 70s movies. And I wanted to ask, with your one art piece, it was soliloquies, I think it was, or soliloquy. How
Soliloquy,
did
but
you,
those are
how do you,
color though, not black and white.
oh, no, so I'm sorry. Skipping over. It was, oh,
The
it was the
little,
one apart. That's what I'm thinking of. Apart.
oh, okay.
How did you, I'm sorry, I got them mixed up. How did you, with apart, how do you like do with the scratches? With the, like, it looks so like you stood in front of it and took the picture yourself of it. Like, how
Do
do
you
you
want
do
me to go
that in
back
the
to that?
dark room with like,
Do you want
yeah,
me to
if you, I don't want you to
Well, you know what? I can go back once I get to the end of this. I'll go back to that. But that's a great question. Just do you want to hold that for a second? That question, and we'll
yeah,
go
I
back
got you.
to it.
Yeah,
We'll definitely.
yeah, definitely.
I'll go back. But I'm almost to the end. But this is just one of. I wanted to have a shelf of these little objects in this as part of this exhibition, and because as I mentioned, I collect little objects, everything from a little toy shoe here on the shelf to a little tiny toy block, alphabet block, to, a little weird, uh, I don't, spike ball that, I find on the ground. So well, I'm showing you this because this actually, oh my God, another tangent. Okay. I'm going to zoom through this because we're running out of time. This is a watch I designed called the iWatch, and it's a photographic, obviously, watch. I produced it and designed it. It was in production between 1986 and 2000. It, sold at several museum shops, including, Walker Art Center, the Whitney Museum Shop, and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I'm showing this because it connects with the iBook. In my working on the iWatch, I started collecting images of eyes, whether painting, photos, sculptures, whatever. And at one point I had a huge collection and I thought, oh my God, this would make a great book. And then I thought, well, surely this has been done before, but it hadn't. So I set about finding a publisher and also getting all the rights to all the images by different artists that I wanted to use and include in the book. So these are just a few of them. It's chronological and it ranges from the 1500s to the 2000s. And I paired them with quotes. And, I had to raise money for this to purchase the rights. And I did a special collector's edition, which included a photograph of mine. And I pre-sold those collector's editions and as I got the money from the sales, I would purchase the rights to different images to use in the book. It was insane. It was a very long involved project, but once I got started, I couldn't stop, even if I wanted to. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And these are just a few of the many pictures or works included in the book. So again, back to this, you see the small objects. Here's a little close-up in the lower left of some of the small objects, which now I'm working on sculptures, very small sculptures, small scale, using objects. And cubes are connected, of course, as always, as usually the base of the image of the works. And I'm kind of going non-photographic with these, although a couple of them do have photographs in them. They're, an outgrowth of the photo totems, and I may bring photos back. This is a very, very new series, just started last May, and I'm still developing it, but I may at some point start to incorporate photography back into these, or not. I'm not sure. I'm trying to be very spare and minimal with these, but you can see, the geometric forms and shapes that I'm interested in. But so, I mean, I have other work, but I think I want to go back to the question that was asked by, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Oh, it was Darius.
Darius. Okay, Darius, I'm going back.
Also, too, your sculptures are amazing. I used to stack rocks in the woods because I wanted to learn balance, and it reminds me of stacking rocks in the woods.
Yes. It's a lot of balance involved and sizes and shapes. So here we are. This is back.
This right here it's like, it just looks like a soul split, and it almost reminds me of like film lightning strikes. It's like separating one soul into two souls, but it's still one soul, and it's connection.
You know what? I mean, those are the two halves of me. When I was a very big baby when I was born, and they thought I was going to be twins. So maybe I am actually two people in one. I don't know. But yes, I hear you. And I really appreciate that comment because, I feel that resonates with me, what you're saying.
Now, this right here, I've been wanting to do dark rooms just to explore, because there's a photographer, I forgot his name. He took, like, he went in a dark room and he basically took almost I think the ink from the picture, and he almost was like painting it, making the photo look like a watercolor painting, but it was real photo. And like it was all from a dark room, and I see your photos, and it's like, I really want to experiment with dark rooms, but I don't know how to like get to that level of like what you were doing. That's why I wanted to like get some like pointers on like how to like experiment like that with a dark room.
Well, do you have access to a dark room?
There's a place actually in Center City that lets you like try out in a dark room. I forgot if it's like a thing you got paid for or something like that, but there's like a place I can go to for like a
There's a
dark room.
couple places actually. There's the Fleischer Art Memorial has dark rooms. I'm pretty sure.
I gotta write that down actually. Fleischer Art
Yes, Fleischer
Memorial.
Art Memorial. Yes, it's in right around 6th and or 7th and Catherine. Just above the Italian market, close to the Italian market.
Off the Italian market.
Darius, there's also the Halide Project.
Yes, the Halide Project. Thank you. I was trying to remember the name.
And what was the other one?
Halide Project, Halide.
Right.
Halide Project. And where's that in this city?
Oh, you can, I don't know where that is, but you can Google it. That'll come right up.
Yeah.
They're also on Instagram.
Ah.
Well,
Yeah.
both.
So how did you with the dark room and the photos? So how did the whole process come about, if you don't mind me asking? Like how did you do all that?
Well, I mean, I was learning photography at the time, and so, I started out in the dark room, and then I continued in my own dark room, but I learned how to do it at Tyler, how to work in the dark room, how to print black and white and color.
Oh.
And with color, with black and white, you can see a little bit, you have a safe light and you can sort of make things out. You could see in the dark room and very, very, very low level light with the safe light. With color, you're in pitch black, darkness, you cannot. I did actually have a little necklace with a little tiny light on it, very, very dim, but just so you wouldn't like crash into something, you could have a tiny light that would illuminate something when you were like 5 inches from it. So
Oh
you
my.
have to feel your way around in there.
How long did it take you to learn darkroom? Is it like a long process of understanding darkroom?
No, I mean, I kind of took right to it because I was so into photography. It was brand new to me and I was just jumping right in. And, we were all, it was just something I really wanted to learn. So, later on, I started to not like the dark room. I didn't like being in the dark. So now I'm no longer in the dark room, but I have a lot of imagery right now. I'm in the process of digitizing all my negatives and making high-res files from them. I mean, I'm about, I've got a lot already done, but there's more to go. But now I have to organize, digitized files, digital files where the originals are digital. And then of course there are the one-of-a-kind unique pieces that are the collages. There is no negative. It's done after the fact. But if you're going to check out the darkroom, you should definitely try doing photograms.
It
Where
is really that I like watch this whole thing because I actually have a very close friend who does sculpting.
Who does what?
And she does sculptures. Like she makes all her own sculptures from scratch.
Oh, okay.
And like seeing this like really just like inspired like the creativity, watching all like these photo slides. So I really appreciate your work.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear that.
No problem, no problem.
So here we are, 7:57. Anybody else have any questions in the last 3 minutes?
I'm Steve. I'm just curious how you're digitizing all your stuff. Are you taking just pictures of it or are you actually scanning them or?
Oh, I'm scanning. Yeah. Scanning at a high resolution.
So that's a long process.
Yes, very, very long, very tedious. And black and white is a lot easier to do than color. When you scan the color image and then you have to color correct, or it can be really, really challenging. I still have images that I'm not happy with how the color is. I'm still playing with it to get the color the way I want it to be. So I have vintage prints made from negatives that I printed myself. And then I have digital modern prints made, from digital files. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Because I digitized, I scanned a lot of the photos from my parents. They were slides. And I bought an attachment for my camera so I could put, it was like a filter that you could put in front of your camera and you'd actually take a picture of it. It was a lot faster than actually scanning it.
Oh, wow. I don't know about that. I'll have to look into it.
Well, I'll be happy to talk to you after this some other time if you want.
Okay.
So I have a question for you, Jenny. You've done film photography, you've done instant photography, Polaroid, you've done digital. Is the kind of camera you're using, how does that influence what kind of subjects?
I
you're
love that
taking?
question. I love that question because the camera really, the camera for me, the camera that I'm using really does affect the image that I end up with. It just does. It's the nature of the process. I mean, when I'm working with a 2¼ square camera, I just approach something completely differently than I would with a 35 millimeter. It's just hard to explain, but and a digital camera too. Have you noticed that yourself?
Well, I tell you, I haven't shot much film, in 25 years. So, I wonder if I took out my film camera. I mean, I guess with film, everything was much more deliberate. You
Yes,
know,
right.
you were taking 20 shots, not 400.
Right. I
Uh,
still try to shoot that way. I'm telling you, I do not like just, shooting 1,000 pictures to get 10 good ones. I'm very deliberate still, whether it's a plastic camera, SX70, I will not shoot until I like to crop in camera in the frame,
Mhm.
not later in the darkroom or in Photoshop. I like to crop right in the viewfinder, and I compose that way. I mean, I'm almost obsessive about that. I won't, it's got to be captured within the frame at the time of the shot. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but I love to me, that's a challenge. I don't want anything extraneous in there, and it is much more deliberate, and it forces you to really compose and look at everything that you have. It's slower, but I think I like what I end up with better that way. I've been
Thank
like
you.
that from the beginning. I don't know why. I never even thought about it. It was just automatic.
Thank you.
Thank
Jay,
you.
Jay, I have a question. The books that you're publishing, are you self-publishing or are you working with a publishing house?
Well, this one, the iBook that's on the screen now, that was published with Damiani
Yes, I see that on the screen.
in
yeah.
Italy, but the photo play, if I can find it, that was self-published. And I had that printed in Massachusetts. This was before everybody was doing, this was not before, but right at the time where everybody started doing their own monographs or their own books. Now today, like, it's unheard of, not unheard of, but it's very common and almost required if you want a gallery or if you want to have, you really should have a monograph. As I've heard it said, it's like the best introduction to an artist's work, I guess, other than Instagram and the website.
Thank you.
So. Eileen, are you there?
Yes, I am here. And what an amazing presentation.
Oh,
Especially since my background originally was film, darkroom, film, darkroom, darkroom, film. And then kind of just went with the flow into the Polaroid thing, into digital. And then and now if I had the time, I would go back to film. I would
Uh-huh.
not go back to the dark room. Years in the dark room, as I look back, were some of the best years of my life. They
mm,
were the most relaxing.
yeah,
Working in the dark room was, you could listen to a book on tape and just print away. I was printing medical stuff, but you could just relax. It was so one. And then once I got pushed into the digital stuff, no. For me, I could not listen to a book on tape and do digital work. No.
right.
Digital
Right.
took a different part of my brain, and it was not relaxing. It was stressful. It was dealing with computers that did not like me.
Oh,
Yeah, it was just a whole different thing. So watching you progress from film into the Polaroid area, into digital, I can understand, and I appreciate that your creativity remained through the whole thing. What if we go back to my medical thing? And one of the reasons that I joined the Photographic Society in the like around 1995, I guess, or so, was because I couldn't be creative with the medical stuff. Everything I did medical had to be exact and perfect, and the right color and the right everything.
right.
And I was a real creative person growing up. I made clothing. I did all these things that were creative, and all of a sudden my career was like, be exact.
Yeah,
Be exact.
right.
You know? And so joining the Photographic Society gave me a chance to actually be creative, and to also to enjoy the creativity of other photographers.
Right.
So, and while so I went around in a whole circle, but what I wanted to tell you was that I really enjoyed looking at your creativity. It was really super, super inspiring.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Everyone, thank you all for coming. I'm gonna just zoom to the final page. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I jumped around a little bit. I see some things where I should have moved put one thing, put things in different places, but
It's difficult to do an hour, to do an entire life in an hour.
that's for sure. And believe me, it wasn't all there. That's but that's as much as I could fit into an hour.
But we really appreciate it. And I just want to remind everyone that next month, March 21st, we're going to have 10 members show their 12 favorites.
All right.
And let me tell you, we've been doing this year after year after year, lately digitally and with Zoom. But picking 12 of your favorites is not easy.
No, definitely not.
So we're gonna stress out 10 people for next month.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you, Jenny Lynn.
so
Thank
much
you.
for tuning in. We
well,
look
be
forward to
safe.
seeing you all next month. Take
Wonderful.
care. Enjoy
Take
this
care, Eileen.
crazy spring weather.
Yes.
And I think it's going to snow for Easter.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah, goodbye, everybody.
Okay.